Classic Audiobooks Library presents The Monkey's Paw by W. W. Jacobs. Section 1. The Visitor. The night was cold and wet. But in the small parlour of Laburnum Villa, the blinds were drawn and the fire burned brightly. Father and son sat at chess. The father, who had unusual ideas about the game, kept putting his king into sharp and unnecessary danger, enough to make the white-haired old lady knitting by the fire raise an eyebrow. He said, "Hark at the wind." He sat listening, settled and content. She said, "I'm listening, dear, but it sounds more like rattling windows than danger." The son smiled. "I should hardly think he'll come tonight, in a storm like this, even for sixpence. Doesn't seem to have hurt your game, though." Check. "Never mind, dear. I'm not beaten yet." At that moment, the old man got up quickly and opened the door. A tall burly man with a red face and small sharp eyes stepped in. He said, "Sergeant Major Morris." They shook hands warmly. The visitor sat by the fire while Mr. White fetched whiskey and tumblers and set a copper kettle over the flame. After his third glass, the sergeant's eyes began to shine. He talked freely now, and the little family leaned in to listen. He said, "It's a good thing I don't tell you everything I know. People would call me a liar, and some of them would be right." Mr. White asked, "You've always got stories. What's that one about a monkey's paw?" The soldier paused. He set his empty glass down and slowly reached into his pocket. He said, "It's just a little thing, nothing much. Bit of magic maybe, nothing worth bragging about." He drew out something and held it up, a dried monkey's paw. He said, "There was an old Farker, a holy man. He wanted to show that fate ruled people's lives, and that those who tried to change it would suffer for it. He put a spell on this paw so that 3 men could each have 3 wishes." Mr. White said, "Well then, why don't you use it?" The sergeant looked at him and said, "I have." His voice was quiet. The room went still. Mr. White asked, "And did your wishes really come true?" "Yes, they did." There was a silence. "And anyone else?" The sergeant nodded. "The first man had his 3. I don't know what the first 2 were, but the third was for death. That's how I got the paw." Section 2. The Wish. The family stared at the monkey's paw. Mr. White said, "What do you keep it for?" The sergeant shook his head. "Fancy, I suppose. I had some idea of selling it, but I don't think I will. It's done enough mischief already." He tossed it into the fire. With a slight cry, Mr. White stooped down and snatched it out. The sergeant turned sharply. "Better let it burn." Mr. White looked at it closely. "If you've had your 3 wishes, is it any good to you now?" "None. I don't want it. It's caused enough trouble." Mr. White asked, "Well, how do you do it?" The sergeant answered slowly, "Hold it up in your right hand and wish aloud. But I warn you, be careful what you wish for." The family laughed, though uneasily. Mrs. White said, "Sounds like the Arabian Nights." All the same, Mr. White put the paw in his pocket. As the guest rose to go, he turned and said, "If you must wish, wish for something sensible." When he had gone, the family sat together in silence. The fire crackled. The wind howled outside. Finally, Herbert spoke. "Well, father, wish for something." Mr. White hesitated. "It seems to me I've got all I want." Herbert laughed. "If you only paid off the house, you'd be quite happy, eh? Well then, wish for £200. Mr. White drew the paw from his pocket. He said, half joking, "I wish for £200. The monkey's paw twisted in his hand with a little shudder. He gave a cry and dropped it. Mrs. White jumped. It moved. He said, as I wished, it twisted in my hand like a snake. Herbert said, well, I don't see the money. And I bet I never shall. They all laughed, a little nervously. The wind blew louder. The room felt colder. But nothing else happened. Eventually, they went to bed. Herbert stopped at the top of the stairs and called down, well, good night, Mother. Good night, Dad. Hope you find that £200 under your pillow in the morning. Section 3. The News. In the bright morning sunshine, the house felt cheerful again. The spell of the previous night had lifted. Herbert sat at the breakfast table, laughing at the idea of magic. He said, the thing moved in your hand, I swear it did. But I still say, £200 won't drop from the sky. He kissed his mother, nodded to his father, and left for work. The day passed quietly. The old couple went about their usual routine. Around noon, a stranger in a formal coat walked slowly up the path. He paused at the gate, then knocked. Mrs. White opened the door. She said, come in, sir. What can I do for you? The man stepped in awkwardly, holding his hat in both hands. I was asked to call, he said. I come from Moore and Meggins. Mrs. White's face lit up. Is it about Herbert? The man looked uncomfortable. Mr. White joined them and offered a chair. The visitor sat down and cleared his throat. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry. There was a long pause. He said, there was an accident at the factory. Herbert was caught in the machinery. Mrs. White gasped. Caught in the machinery. He nodded. He died instantly. There was silence. A low, broken cry escaped Mrs. White. Mr. White sat frozen. The man continued gently. I was asked to say, the company takes no responsibility. But in consideration of your son's service, they wish to present you with a sum of money. Mrs. White stared at him. He said, it's £200. Mr. White gave a sudden, wild cry. His wife collapsed beside him. The room spun around them. Outside, the sun still shone. The birds still sang. Section 4. The Second Wish. A week passed. The house was steeped in stillness and sorrow. Sometimes they barely spoke. Other times they spoke too much, and always about him. Late one night, Mrs. White sat upright in bed. She whispered, the poor. Mr. White stirred. What? The monkey's paw. Our wish was granted. Why not a second wish? He stared at her. She said, we had one. Why not another? Why not wish him back? He sat up slowly. He's been dead 10 days. She said, and? He said, I couldn't bear it. I saw the body. I had to identify it. It was too horrible. She said, then wish him alive again. No, he said. I won't. You must. You must. You must. She grabbed his arm. Get it. Get it now and wish. He hesitated. Then slowly, he reached for the paw. The room was dark. The air cold. He held the paw tightly. I wish my son alive again. A chill wind blew against the window. But no sound followed. They sat in silence. The candle flickered low. She said, why doesn't it work? He didn't answer. They waited. And waited. Then suddenly, a knock. 3 soft knocks. At the front door. They stared at each other. The knock came again. Louder this time. Mrs. White cried, it's him. It's Herbert. She ran down the stairs. Mr. White whispered, "For God's sake, don't open it." She fumbled with the bolts. Her hands shook. "Help me. I can't undo it." He said, "Think. What if it's not right?" She cried, "It's our boy. It's our son." He searched frantically for the paw. She struggled at the door, fingers slipping on the chain. The knocking grew louder, desperate. He found the paw. His voice trembled. "I wish him gone." Suddenly, silence. No more knocks. She flung open the door. There was nothing there. The road was empty. Section 5. The End. A cold wind swept across the road. Mrs. White stood in the open doorway, staring out into the darkness. The gate hung loosely on its hinges. The night was quiet again. She looked left, then right. Her voice barely a breath. She said, "He was here. I heard him." Mr. White stepped beside her. "It's over." Her hands were trembling. "You made the wish." "Yes." He looked down the empty street. There were no footprints. No shadows. Only the silence of night. Slowly, she closed the door. They turned back toward the cold, dim room. The candle had gone out. The fire had died. Nothing moved. The monkey's paw lay curled on the floor. This concludes the end of the story. Thank you for listening to Classic Audiobooks Library. To hear more free stories like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We hope you'll join us again for more timeless stories and original works. Until next time.